Gear up for Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. It's your final word on sports all across the state. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now here are your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
They do, however, want to win. You know, they want to be regular season champions. They want to win the tournament, but that's as big as it gets.
We don't rely on one person, so we all stick together. We stayed connected, throughout the whole game. We didn't give up, and that's what it's all about. Everybody depending on each other.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back into Sports Talk here on a Thursday night from the capital city. Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, the Professor Tom Hayes. Glad to be with you on what should be another dynamite edition of Sports Talk. 800-956-7266 if you want to jump on here early as you're heading home from wherever you happen to be here in the Palmetto State. Maybe you're stuck in traffic. Maybe you're just moving right along with no problems. Whatever the case may be, take a moment out of your day and give us a call. Certainly something on your mind related to the sports world here in South Carolina is something you want to share with the rest of the state. 800-956-7266 is the number. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com and on Twitter @SportsTalkSC. Coming up, bottom of the hour, USC baseball coach Chad Holbrook. We will talk in depth with him about his team in the upcoming season, which begins in 8 days. Opening day, 8 days away. An hour after that, we're going to begin our traditional, it's close enough to spring, and it feels like spring for the most part to call this spring. Look at our traditional looking ahead to spring football practice for schools around the state, and a little bit of a look back at recruiting for the schools. Coach Buddy Pugh from South Carolina State will join us, so we'll find out how he feels about his recruiting class and how he feels about his team. He lost his quarterback, Caleb York transferred out to somewhere. I don't know where, but he left the program. So they got to find themselves a quarterback if they're going to get back to winning MEAC championships. K-Mac, how are you?
I'm doing outstanding, Corn. I am doing capital.
Pro, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm just looking over some rosters in the NBA and trying to see if I want to sign Oakley to a 10-year deal.
Charles Oakley. How about the Knicks, man? It's always a party in Madison Square Garden.
That was kind of painful to watch that go down. I mean, bad on his part to lose his cool like that, but according to him, he had been there 4 minutes and all these people surround him, and he's Charles Oakley. That's kind of how he played. That's why Knicks fans like him.
Yeah.
I could imagine if I was sitting there minding my own business and all of a sudden, especially being a former Knick in Madison Square Garden, and you're surrounded by people saying you got to go.
Yeah.
And that's just Dolan. And that's what happens when you don't have the right people running your organization. The Knicks, a storied program that has been in the dump for a while. And look, I'm a Laker fan, and the Lakers are in the dumps right now for a lot of the same reasons. They're chaos right now. And
not even the great Phil Jackson can fix this problem.
Yeah, well, Phil Jackson's, might be part of the problem there too, because the game has changed so much now. It's not a triangle offense type of game, and these aren't the same types of players. And he's tweeting about Carmelo Anthony, which isn't always the best thing to do when you have a disgruntled player. But these are the days of our lives in the NBA, which I know about 4 people listening right now care about the NBA.
Well, the big problem
Don't
is –
tell Pro that.
No, the big problem –
He thinks the NBA is the big sports story in our state.
The big problem is that the Knicks were never as good as they thought they were. I mean, when they had Willis Reed, DeBusschere, Bradley, Walt Frazier, that was the Knicks team. Even with Patrick Ewing, they didn't win anything. So when have the Knicks last been significant anyway? So,
been a long time. And K-Mac's right. I mean, organizationally, they're a mess. They're turning over coaches left and right. And when you go into that sort of deal, you go into a tailspin. It's hard to pull out, even with free agency and buying players. I mean, they've got one of the world's greatest players in Carmelo Anthony, and they still can't build a winner around him.
Well, and
they're trying to get rid of him.
It's not just the NBA. This is a script that fits for any level of sports, really. If you have stability, if you have people up top that have faith in their coaches that aren't going to give way to every little whim of the fans, because the fans want to get rid of the coach every time there's a loss. If Terry Don Phillips would have listened to Clemson fans, Dabo Swinney wouldn't have been there to win that national championship. He would have been out the door after he lost in the Car Care Bowl.
Ding, ding,
You
ding.
look at the Steelers and the Patriots. What do they have at the top? They have stability. They have coaches that have staying power. I think the Steelers have had, 3-4 coaches in the past.
3 coaches in 40 years.
Yeah, so that's what it takes. Those are organizations that win. And same in college football. You look at the teams that are firing their coaches every 4 or 5 years. How many of those teams are winning championships compared to the teams that are playing for championships that have had a coach in place for 6, 7, 8 years? I mean, Steve Spurrier had a 10-year run at South Carolina. If his name wasn't Steve Spurrier, he probably would have been fired after they lost to Iowa in the Outback Bowl. That probably would have been it for him.
You think so? Even at South Carolina, they don't fire coaches after getting to a bowl game, even if they lose it.
The way things were going at that time, they've been clubbed by Clemson, and he seemed a little disinterested, and there were some goofy things happening. He turned it around, but it takes time. And usually sometimes in those middle years, you have those kind of issues. You have to stick with the coach, I think, and too often it's reactionary to throw the guy out and turn over the personnel and make guys transfer. I mean, you look at the programs that win. You have upperclassmen that have been developed. You're not just replacing guys every year. When Darren Horn was running the Gamecock basketball program, guys were transferring out all over the place. When Frank Martin's there, he's got senior leadership, which is something they didn't have, and all of a sudden they're winning 20, 25 games a year.
All right. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Want to give a shout out to the folks at Dave & Buster's here in Columbia. Dave & Buster's, a national chain. It's a huge deal. It's a sports bar. It's a restaurant. It's a carnival atmosphere in there, and they're opening one up in Columbia. And they had a little media day today, and we 3 of us went out there. K-Mac, myself, and Jarmart. Of course, anytime there's a free lunch, we're going to show up.
Yeah, we showed up for the free food, stayed for the games.
Yeah, it was delicious. And then they gave us passes. We went back there and took advantage of the games. And came back. My attorney plans to contact you because once again you went on social media and mentioned me without my approval. Yeah.
You have your name trademarked.
So
I did dominate those games. Let's be real.
It's again. You go to a lot of these carnivals,
right?
And obviously, you spend a lot of time at the state fair,
right?
Practicing the little basketball shoot and the little
carny. Yeah, the Papa Shot was pretty solid.
K-Mac, I tell you, he's solid in these little arcade games. He's very solid.
Everybody's got a specialty.
Wait. I distinctly remember owning K-Mac on the finish line in that racing game, Mario Kart Racing.
Yeah,
I
did lose.
Stole victory from you at the last second.
I think he played with Princess Peach, and he hit me with the turtle shell. I was Wario. That's my go-to guy in Mario Kart, and I was denied at the line. Although it was
really have no idea what you're talking about there.
It's a racing game.
Yeah, I stuck with the basketball and the football. The football throw was fun.
And skee ball was pretty dominating too. I think I won that one. It was a good day.
It was
for
another
Team
tie
Kevin.
between the two of us, 220 to 220.
Oh,
yeah. I just want to say thanks to the folks out there. They've got a tremendous operation that will open on Monday. It's at Columbiana Mall out in Harbison. It's the old Sears building, 30,000 square feet.
I've never been to one of those. I'd never been into a Dave & Buster's.
Same here.
And
Same here.
I always kind of said, I thought it was like a Chuck E. Cheese sort of deal. I didn't realize that it was that cool.
It's got a little bit of something for everybody. For your adults, your sports fans. You got a section, got a wonderful looking sports bar with the latest televisions plastered all over the place. You want to just go for dinner in a quieter area, they've got that. And if you got the kids or you're a kid at heart, they got a big old arcade section with all the most modern technology in gaming, I would say. Very nice stuff. So just want to give a shout out and say thanks to the folks there at Dave & Buster's. And you'll have a chance, if you live in the Columbia area, you'll have a chance to go see it for yourself next week. And I think they have a location in Greenville. I'm not sure where else around the state, but I know they have one in Greenville too. Okay, we'll be right back here on Sports Talk. You make sure your mic. We are back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. 800-956-7266 is our number. Basketball tonight. Of course, South Carolina women in action tonight as they get that big one coming up against Connecticut Monday night. That's going to be a lot of fun to see if they can go up there and snap Connecticut's what should be a 99-game winning streak when the USC women go up there. Tonight, the USC women are playing Vanderbilt here in Columbia. Going to tip off right around 7 o'clock. And not take that back. It's Auburn tonight.
Auburn,
yeah,
yes.
My bad. It's Auburn tonight at 7 o'clock, then Connecticut, and then Vanderbilt. This will shock you. I was actually having a conversation with somebody about the USC women's team the other day. I mean, they're very, very good, no doubt about it.
Yes, they are.
But are they as good as they have been?
No.
Okay, make you sound like you know what
you
you're
ask
talking
a question,
about.
I'm going to give you an answer.
You actually sound
I've
like
watched
you know
them
something.
play enough to have a quasi. Well, first of all, they've lost two games.
A game at
to
home.
non-ranked teams.
Yeah.
One at home, one on the road. They got throttled at Duke, and normally Duke's good, but they're not a top 10 Duke team this year, and they lost at home to Tennessee. So that alone makes them not as good from a record standpoint, and I think they are missing some pieces. They have a freshman starting at point guard. That's always tough when you have an inexperienced player handling the point. So I don't think they're quite as good as they were.
Now,
they're not bad.
Duke is 20-4. They're ranked 14, so they're not That's not. There's no shame in losing at Duke.
Yeah.
Let me put it
The way they lost by double digits.
Let me put it another way.
And Tennessee's a ranked team. They're 24. So both of their losses have been to ranked teams.
Well, Tennessee's ranked now because they beat South Carolina. They weren't ranked
but Tennessee is also ranked because for whatever reason the officials took the Twin Towers out of the game early.
And they did have a bad. There was a horrible call in that game too.
Well, you can't leave it in the officials' hands.
But I will say this: this team does not have the veteran guards. However, I think the depth is better at guard. So while you look at your starting five on the surface is not as good as those other starting fives because of the lack of senior leadership at the guard position, they still are deeper at guard. So is this team potentially, when they get into the NCAAs, can go just as far as the other team? Yes, if that depth kicks in, and that's the big key.
A big game up at Furman tonight. It's Furman against UT Chattanooga, two of the top teams in the Southern Conference. The Paladins trying to hang on to first place in the SoCon. They're 9-2. Chattanooga and East Tennessee right behind at 8-3. So this will be a huge game for Furman. A lot of excitement up there about the Furman basketball team. They're on a 6-game winning streak and looking to see if they can get to the NCAA tournament. So good luck up there to the Paladins tonight. Of course, a couple of big games nationally. The one game that, as a basketball fan, you can't miss. It's North Carolina and Duke tonight at Cameron. Krzyzewskiville's been populated for weeks, and you're going to see a lot of the stuff about the 6 miles between the campuses, the ride from one to the other, and the great history, and justifiably so. This is not taking any shots at this basketball rivalry. It's what the ACC is truly all about. I mean, the ACC it's not about Clemson football and a national championship or Florida State football or anything else. It's about North Carolina Duke basketball. I mean, it was created around that. The other 6 schools that joined in, when they created the league back in the 50s, they were nice additions. But I'm sure those people sitting around that smoke-filled room in Greensboro at the Smithfield Country Club, when they were thinking about everything, it was about Duke and North Carolina basketball. And to this day, it's one of the great, to me, it's one of the great sporting events every year, especially at Cameron. I mean, I know it's great at the Smith Center as well. I've been to the game once at Cameron, and it's quite a scene to watch the fans and the way the teams go at each other. And I hope it's a close game. I'd love to see one of those games that comes down to a final shot. We've seen so many of them over the years, both ways. I think one of the greatest ones was the Austin Rivers shot that won it for Duke. And I think Jeff Capel had a memorable last-second shot that won it for Duke.
It sent it overtime.
Sent it overtime, yep. And, of course, North Carolina has had their share as well. So it's always exciting to watch these two teams go at it.
What is interesting to do is to see how other conferences deal with that game. Everybody knows it gets the national attention. Because if you notice, I think tonight the Big 12 has no games. The Southeastern Conference normally don't have games on Thursday. Once in a while they have games on Thursday. The Big 10, we don't need no stinking Duke in North Carolina. So they schedule Purdue and Indiana, that battle of Indiana is tonight. And then they top it off with a home game, I think, for Wisconsin. So they're the conference that says, okay, you can have your, but we got our thing here in the Big 10.
Oh, yeah. And then there's a big game out west tonight, UCLA and Oregon. So it's for college basketball, great doubleheader night. The Tar Heels and Blue Devils tip off at 8, and then the game on the West Coast, I guess, will tip off around 10 or so, 10:30.
Oregon at Pauley Pavilion against UCLA. It's Dick Enberg Appreciation Night. He's 82.
Wow.
And they're just going to congratulate him because he was, other than doing California Angels games back in the day, he also did a lot of UCLA home games before he jumped to NBC and did the NCAA tournament.
All right, let me catch you up on a few other notes in basketball. The Naismith top 30 men's players list was announced today, and Sindarius Thornwell from USC is on that list. Jerron Blossom game from Clemson is not on that list. Certainly he is among the top 30 players in the country.
Yeah, I would say that he would be.
He's carrying his team as best he can. I mean, his numbers are good. There's nothing wrong with his numbers.
Nope.
Now, Thornwell, my goodness, he is on fire. And
he's on fire.
He is got to be considered right now. If South Carolina can stay in the race for the SEC championship, win it, or finish second, he continues to play at the level he's playing right now. He's got to be considered strongly for Player of the Year. There's going to be a strong, of course, block
Kentucky.
for those Kentucky, whoever Kentucky guy happens to be standing out.
If you had any kind of just eerie feeling about what Thornwell is doing, you always harken back to if the kid's knees had been healthy all along. Because I think you're seeing the Thornwell harkening back to what everybody said he could grow into as a high school player. And then the knees gave him some problems. And now I think Gamecock fans finally see what a healthy Sindarius Thornwell can do.
Just looking at this list, Jawan Evans, a South Carolina kid from Greenville, he's on that list out of Oklahoma State. He's having a big year. That was one that really Clemson, they thought they were going to get him and did not. That was a big miss there from a recruiting standpoint. Two guys from Kentucky, Malik Monk is on the list, and De'Aaron Fox is on the list. So, they can split up the MVP votes, and maybe there'll be enough in there for Thornwell. Danny Morrison stepped down today as the president of the Panthers, a position he's had since 2009. Yeah. Wondering if he is headed back to a college somewhere to be an AD, maybe headed to a conference to be a commissioner once again. He has had a bunch of important roles in his professional career. So we'll see where he ends up. SEC preseason baseball poll from the coaches. The East, it's Florida, USC, Vandy, then Georgia, Kentucky tied for fourth, then Tennessee and Missouri. Boy, if you're a Missouri fan right now, you got to be wondering what has happened to our athletic department. Football was terrible. Basketball's worse. And baseball's picked for last in the division. Out west, it's LSU, followed by Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas. Then Alabama, Auburn picked sixth. For the championship, it's Florida and LSU receiving 6 votes each, and USC got 2. 2 Gamecocks are on the preseason All-SEC team. Relief pitcher Tyler Johnson on the first team, and DH outfielder Alex Destino on the second team. All right, there you go. In fact, that's a good lead-in to Chad Holbrook, who's coming up in a moment. Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Good to have you with us tonight, wherever you happen to be in South Carolina or beyond our borders. The phone line is 800-956-7266. We'll get back to your phone calls here in a little bit. Phil Kornblut, Kevin McCrary, Professor Tom Hayes. And right now we welcome in head baseball coach at South Carolina, Chad Holbrook, 8 days away. Wasn't there a song by the Beatles? No, that was
8 days a week.
8 days a week, yeah. Mm-hmm. They should make that 8 days away from opening pitch of a new season. Coach, how are you?
I'm good, Phil. How are you doing?
We're doing great. Thank you for joining us. So, really, I guess you've done most of your hard work in camp the last couple of weeks, getting ready for the season opener next week. So, how do you feel about your guys at this stage?
Well, I feel good. I mean, we got 3 important scrimmages this weekend. We still got some battles going on in the positions, and we're trying to get our pitchers in a routine to get them lined up for opening weekend. So it's an important weekend that's in front of us, and there's some important positions to be won. But that being said, we worked really hard. Our kids have put in a lot of time and had some good practices, and we've been blessed with good weather. So hopefully come next Friday, considering we've only been practicing, I guess, for 3 weekends, hopefully we'll be as prepared as we could possibly be. Mm-hmm. And that's our hope, and hopefully come Friday we're ready to go.
What are the position battles that are still going on right now?
Well, we got, first base and right field are 2 that, I got, maybe four guys that are very capable of playing any of those positions. Ready to I'd feel good about putting all 4 in those 2 spots, but right now, there's a battle going on there. And Matt Williams right now won the job at first base, but he's getting pushed a little bit by Jacob and a young man named Riley Hogan, and freshman that's really going to be a good player for us. And in the outfield, Jacob Olson's out there, but as well competing for right field. But we also have a young man named Danny Blair, who's a very talented athlete, and he's a good outfielder as well. And he's trying to get in there in one of those 3 outfield spots. So that's right now. And then another junior college kid named Justin Rowe, a middle infielder, and he's a gifted player, and he's one of our 3 middle infielders. And as you know, on opening day, we can only play 2.
Yeah. So you're set at short, third, obviously, behind the plate, set, left field, center field, second base. So you feel like you're set at those spots. It's just first base and right field you're still trying to settle in on.
Yeah, I think so. But, and also, one of those 2 spots as well as, getting Rowe some opportunities as well. And Rowe is the middle infielder I talked about. And he's equally, a good infielder, both at second and short. But he's a really good offensive player. And that's why, he's kind of factoring in a little bit right now. But we got 2 guys right now that kind of won the job in the fall. And we'll stay that way as we get started this weekend and probably as we head into opening day in Madison Stokes and LT Tolbert. But, Justin Rose making it hard on me, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, you'd like to have those kind of decisions to make if they're all playing well. What about Brandon McElwain? How's he look to you?
He's done well. He's he's missed a little time. Obviously, he had a strained oblique, and obviously missed the fall. So he's playing a little bit of catch up, but he's been much farther ahead at this point in time this year than he was last year. And there's no doubt he has the talent and ability to play for us and play every day. Right now, he's just behind a few of those other guys that have, just have some more familiarity and been in the swing of things a little bit longer than Brandon. But we're going to try to catch Brandon up and get him ready to go. And, he might not be ready to start February 17th, but maybe come March 17th, he can get in there. We'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Of your everyday players, you got a very versatile lineup, guys who can play multiple positions. Do you want to get to a solid batting order by conference season, or do you see yourself, depending on who's on the mound for your opponent during the conference season, you may see a little shifting in your lineup from day to day?
Yeah, we can shift some. I don't want to get into where we're shifting 5, 6, 7 guys, but maybe at 2 spots, we might get platoon. Olsen is the Jacob Olsen kid I mentioned. He's a right-handed hitter. And Danny Blair and Matt Williams, they're both left-handed hitters. So you could be a situation in which, with those guys both at first base and right field to get the correct hitter in there versus the pitcher that we're facing. So there might be a platoon position or 2. But other than that, I want a consistent set lineup. I just think that's the way your kids best perform, and they know that when they come to the part they're playing, they know where they're hitting. I think that's all important in our game of baseball. That being said, we got some versatility. We're going to have to move some things around early, but come conference season, I would like to be set on who we're going to put in there.
Talking with Chad Holbrook, USC baseball coach. How about Destino? 10 homers last year, 4 more than his first year. You're seeing even more power out of him. You foresee more home runs from him this season?
He's got good power. It wouldn't surprise me if he hit, double-digit home runs again. I think he's a better hitter this year than he was last year. Even though, he hit for a pretty good average, I think he can do even better. His knowledge of the strike zone is better. He'll take his walks a little bit more. So I think he's a little bit more advanced as an offensive player than he was a year ago. And I hope, with pitch selection, that'll translate into more home runs because he's certainly a big, strong, powerful kid.
Last year you had the great combination. You committed only 50 errors the entire season. That's incredible. And, of course, your pitching, ERA, very good, 3.29. Will this team be as good defensively as last year's?
That's the question mark I have for our group. I think our team is a good defensive team. I don't know. Last year we were elite defensively. And, we did some really good things with Mooney and DC Arendas were 2 as gifted infielders as we've ever had here. But that being said, I don't know if we're at that level, but I think we're very, very good. If we field 978 or 980 as a team, kind of where we were last year, that's going to be a heck of a year for us defensively. And with our pitching staff, we should have our fair share. We should win our fair share. But, right now that's the question mark going in. Are we going to be a consistent, good, solid, consistent defensive team? And that's kind of what I'm challenging our team to do, and I certainly we're working awfully hard at it right now.
Now, I know Hunter Taylor got a little shoulder thing, and so he's sidelined for a little bit. So does Cullen, do you ride him in the early part of the season, or will Taylor be back to help out early on?
Well, Taylor's okay. He's going to be fine. I think he's made some improvements over the last few days, and hopefully by Wednesday or Thursday of next week, he'll be ready to go. But, Johnny Jones caught a lot of games for us last year. Cullen's our starter, and he's a much improved player than he was a year ago, and I think a much better hitter as well. So he's our starter, and Jones and Taylor both can give Chris Cullen a break, and we'll probably do that from time to time. But Hunter's a valuable member of our team. He's going to provide a number of different things or avenues for us in regards to his leadership, what he does in the bullpen for us. He's going to get a spot start here and there. If he gets hot, he'll stay in there. We're glad that Hunter's on our team, but he won't be 100% probably till hopefully this time next week.
How about Jones? He got off to such a great start, and then he really struggled. Is he showing you in camp what he showed you early last year?
He's been much better. He's still been banged up. He had knee surgery in the fall. Had his knee cleaned out, and he's been slow to recover from that. But he is in our scrimmages. He is playing. He's taking great batting practice. He's swinging the bat very well. He looks terrific in BP. And so we hope that translates over into the game. Jonesy's a tough kid, a switch hitter. He helps us with matchups. He's big and strong, and he certainly can hit the ball out of the park. So we need him to be a solid, consistent performer for us if we want to be if we're going to be the offensive team that we want to be. He's a big part of things.
Yeah, boy, his start was unbelievable. National Player of the Week early on, at co-SEC Player of the Week. Hang on, Coach. Got to talk about pitching with you when we come back, because I think that's the ticket. I think anybody who follows your team knows that's how you're going to punch your ticket to Omaha, I would think. We'll be right back. A couple more minutes with Chad Holbrook. We are back, Sports Talk, here on a Thursday night, chatting with USC baseball coach Chad Holbrook for a couple of more minutes. The Gamecocks going to open the season a week from tomorrow, right here in Columbia, a season they hope will end in Omaha after coming oh so close last year. And, Coach, thanks for holding. You look at your team, and we talked about the position players and all that, mighty fine. But the pitching staff jumps out at everybody. And how are you feeling after seeing them so far in preseason camp? And have they lived up to your expectations to this point?
Well, they've thrown good. It's hard to tell when you throw in against your own team. It's different, obviously, but from a velocity standpoint, from a command standpoint, from the way that they've pitched against our players, they've been very, very impressive. The real challenges in front of them with the schedule that we're playing and facing new people, but they have thrown well. I think what's tickled me the most is their preparation, the way they work in the weight room, their leadership, both in the locker room, on the field, and off the field. They have the makings of being the true backbone of our team, and position players are even following those guys around.
Now, I know you announced the weekend trio. Have you settled in on the actual day-by-day breakdown at this point?
Well, no. We obviously on Friday we're going to throw Clark Schmidt, and Saturday Will Crow, and Sunday Adam Hill. We'll go in that rotation. Start opening weekend. As far as Tuesday, who we're going to throw in the middle of the week, we're not ready to make that call yet. We're going to see the scrimmages this weekend and kind of see who jumps out and wins that job. That's another job there's some competition involved in that fourth starter spot. But our bullpen's kind of set with Reed Scott, Josh Reagan, and Tyler Johnson, and Brandon Murray can help us in that role as well. And he's been a lot better than he was a year ago. So we got a new kid named Sawyer Bridges, a freshman that's really throwing the ball well too, and he's ready to factor in, I believe.
So Will, of course, coming off the Tommy John, we talked to him during the summer, and he pitched well for the Fireflies. And what do you see the old Will Crow, or do you see a new and improved Will Crow?
I think, obviously, Phil, I'm biased. I think he's improved. I think he's better. His velocity's certainly better. He's stronger. His body's in a lot better shape. I feel he's more mature. He's stronger as a person for having to handle what he's gone through and the adversity that he's faced. I think Will's ready to have a big year. He's running it up there in the mid-90s well here, and his breaking ball is much better. And he certainly looks the part. You got to go out there and pitch well, but he's put in a lot of work. His rehab's going great, and I think he's in a good position to have a great year for us. So he's him and Clark are tit for tat, and they're both every bit a Friday night guy, but unfortunately we can't start two guys on Friday night. Yeah.
How about Cody Morris? How has he come along in preseason?
Cody was very good in the fall, and actually led our team in earned run average in the fall, threw the ball exceptionally well. He's out of the gate a little bit slow right now. He's been a little tender, not too bad, but just a little sore and coming off of a holiday break. But he's doing fine, and we certainly look forward to seeing him throw this weekend. And he's a big part of things as far as the future of Carolina baseball, and we need to get him throwing as well as he's capable of throwing. And I certainly think that's right around the corner, and hopefully it'll start this weekend.
All right. And Tyler Johnson, how do you compare him to some of the great closers you've seen come through at USC?
Well, he's a different personality. They're all different, but he's special in his own way. He obviously got a great arm, the mid-90s, upper 90s fastball before it jumped out at people. But the thing I like about Tyler is he's very steady. He's got a cool demeanor. He's obviously a great competitor. But a lot of guys that throw that hard don't have great command. And that's where Tyler kind of separates himself is, he throws it in there. He's not a wild reliever or closer that throws the ball all over the place. He has great command of his pitches. And, people think down the road when he gets into professional baseball, he'll actually be a starter because his command is so good. But for us right now, we think he best suits us as our closer, and that's how we'll start the year.
You feel good about the people getting you to him? You mentioned some of the other guys, but you and Coach Myers in laying out your plans, you feel good about your bridge to Tyler Johnson?
Well, yeah, and I hope once we get in the middle of the year, the bridge is our starters. But Josh Reagan, and he had over 10 saves last year, and he had an All-American type season. And Reed Scott's done a great job for us in that type of role as well. And we think Brandon Murray's in position to be much improved. John Park is a young man that was out last year, left-handed pitcher that has thrown the ball well. And I mentioned Sawyer Bridges, as well. The freshman with the great arm is running up there in the mid-90s, and he's a great competitor. So, yeah, we feel good about bridging that gap. And if we can't get to Tyler, there's other ways to get to him and give him the ball early in the game. But right now we feel good that our starters and our middle guys and our setup guys can get Tyler the ball.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, we are looking forward to the season. You open up against UNC Greensboro with 3 games, and then Charlotte, a game against Kansas State, 3 against Wright State, Appalachian State, and then the first. Every game to you, of course, is big, but of course the fans are looking forward to that Clemson series on March 3rd, 4th, and 5th. That should be dynamite. But first things first, UNC Greensboro, and we look forward to being out there watching you guys. Best of luck. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to having you throughout the season.
No problem, Phil. Thanks for having me, and we'll see you at the park real soon.
You got it. Thank you very much. Chad Holbrook, USC baseball coach, with us here on Sports Talk. We appreciate him going into detail with us. So we've had Monty Lee, we've had Chad Holbrook, and next week we'll be in Conway for the 18th annual Baseball at the Beach. We've been at all 17 previous ones. We'll be at number 18 as well. We'll have Coach Gilmore with us. We're planning on Thursday night having him on with us from the Chanticleer Stadium there, leading into the first round of play in the Baseball at the Beach tournament. Also next week, it's the high school football coaches clinic in Myrtle Beach. We'll be tackling both of those events for you next week here on Sports Talk. So we look forward to that. Any reason not to think South Carolina won't be in Omaha this June?
I mean, they are a team that's built for Omaha, and they're a top 5 team. So certainly they have all the capabilities, but I just think, and that's the goal. But to me, the season isn't a failure. You have to see what happens with the ebbs and flows of the season and what they run into. But yeah, it's a team that could go to Omaha.
I think they would look at it as a failure if they don't get to Omaha.
I know some people. I mean, was last year a failure? They didn't go to Omaha. I mean, Gamecock fans, anything short of going to Omaha and winning the thing now. And maybe they're starting to come back to reality a little bit and remembering that it's hard because Ray Tanner didn't go to Omaha every year, and he had some really good teams, and it took him a while to scratch through and break through and get to Omaha. And he lost in some super regionals, and he lost in some super regionals at home. And he finally got there. He got there 3 times in a row, and then they scratched. They weren't terrible, but they were fighting to get back there again, and they got there 3 straight times, twice. And they've recalibrated a little bit, and now they're back on the uptick.
And I'm willing to tell you that Ray had some teams that were better than that team that went to Omaha.
Yeah, he didn't win it with his best team.
But they didn't win it. And we see how quickly it can happen because Oklahoma State, as their coach was telling you, they were struggling at the beginning of the year. But they got on a roll, and you ran into a team that just rolled through South Carolina. It just bowled it through the upstate and just rolled down through the capital. And then they hit their comeuppance in the College World Series. So you got to be hot at the right time.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the schedule. It's a pretty good mix of the tough games at home, tough games on the road. They get Mississippi State at home. They get Vanderbilt at home. That's good. They do have to go to Florida. They do have to go to LSU. That ain't so good. But you take the good and the bad, and you hope you can scratch out enough wins to win series as you go through the league. All right, top of the hour break, recruiting, and more coming up.
Your Touchstone Energy Cooperative provides
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
And back we are, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. If you'd like to join us, 800-956-7266 is the phone number. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com. On Twitter @SportsTalkSC. Lines are open. Thoughts about what Chad Holbrook had to say to us tonight. If you want to look ahead to the start of baseball season next week, going to be another great baseball season here in South Carolina. Some Division II teams have already started the season. Newberry's been playing. I've seen Limestone's been playing. North Greenville's been playing. They get the jump start on the Division I guys, which begin their seasons a week from tomorrow. USC women and Auburn underway, and USC out in front 6-3 early on over at the Colonial Life Arena. Let's catch you up now on some recruiting information for tonight. We begin with receiver DeMarcus Gregory from Burns, 6'3", 205. He'll be one of the state's leading prospects in 2018. Actually, I might need to rephrase that. It's the 2017 season, but the 2018 recruiting campaign. Coming off a season of 61 catches for 800 yards and 7 touchdowns, USC is one of his offers, and he's been friends with Gamecock quarterback Jake Bentley since middle school. And Bentley's presence and progress the offense made when he became the quarterback second half of last season, that's impressed Gregory about the Gamecocks and has him thinking of one day joining his old friend. And he said his conversations with Bobby Bentley are along the lines of they want to keep all the good in-state guys in the state, and he's one of the guys that can help them build up the program. That's the message he's getting from USC. And he likes USC at this point, thinks they're headed in the right direction. However, he's keeping things open for the time being as he looks over his offers and looks at his opportunities. He's not sure if he'll attend USC's junior day later this month. He went to Kentucky in January. Other offers right now from NC State, North Carolina, Wake Forest, Mississippi State, West Virginia, Marshall, and Cincinnati. He'd like to make his commitment decision this summer. Ridgeview defensive lineman Damian Daly visited USC a couple of weeks back. He has spoken with Will Muschamp and Lance Thompson and Eric Wolford. And he said if USC offered, then the Gamecocks would be one of his favorites because it's close to home. Of course, his brother, who has been at Georgia Military Junior College, signed with USC earlier this month. Daly has offers from Cincinnati and Georgia State. He recently visited North Carolina, and he will visit Wake Forest and Appalachian State. USC offered offensive lineman Jerome Carvin, 6'5", 310, Cordova, Tennessee, over near Memphis. Said he was excited about getting the offer, and he thinks South Carolina's on the rise in the SEC East. They like how he's a physical player and that they feel he could fit with their offensive line. He might visit for the spring game. He also has offers from Kentucky, Memphis, Missouri, and others. He recently visited Kentucky. USC offered offensive lineman Nicholas Petit-Friere, 6'6", 260 of Tampa. Some other offers, Alabama, Auburn, Ohio State, Michigan, Nebraska, Notre Dame, Penn State, and Ole Miss. Clemson target linebacker Taraja Mitchell of Virginia Beach will visit Alabama weekend after next. Defensive end Stephon Wynn Jr. of IMG Academy picked up an offer from Miami. He also has Clemson and USC offers. Defensive end KJ Henry of Clemens, North Carolina, told 24/7 Sports he's working on his short list. He knows 3 schools that will be on it: Clemson, Auburn, and Ohio State. Athlete Bryce Thompson of Ben Lippen received an offer from Georgia State. He's a Virginia Tech commitment. And in basketball, Clemson has offered 6'9", Armando Bacote, 2019 class out of Richmond, Virginia. He said he was really excited to get the offer, and he knows Clemson has a great coaching staff, it's a great school, likes the school, and he likes their up-tempo pace. He also has offers from Florida State, Georgetown, Georgia Tech, Miami, Wake Forest, and James Madison. He's been to Virginia and is scheduled to be at Duke this Saturday. Also scheduled to be at Duke this Saturday, Zion Williamson from Spartanburg.
Why wouldn't he be there tonight?
Something called school, maybe?
School?
Grades?
Grades?
Things like that are important. So there you go. That's the recruiting report for tonight. And, of course, follow along with our recruiting info regularly on our website, which is sportstalksc.com. And on Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting. You'll get our stuff. And, of course, any of the interesting stuff of other guys covering USC and Clemson recruiting. We are always willing to retweet other news out there. All right, so there you go with recruiting. South Carolina women up on Auburn now 8-5 as they play over the Colonial Life Arena. A couple of other notes to pass along to you. From North Carolina, the Tar Heels have hired North Texas defensive coordinator Mike Eckler, and apparently he is taking over as defensive coordinator because Gene Chizik
is leaving.
Did he announce it today?
Yes, he did.
He announced today he is leaving to not coach anymore for the foreseeable future. Sort
of interesting because he's at the cusp, but he's only 55. Mm-hmm. So you would think maybe after a year off, he'll show up somewhere else.
Possibly. I mean, let's face it. We all think that coaches have a glorious job and it's this cush job. They are well paid. Okay, yes. So nobody's going to have any sympathy for him for that. But let's face it, at the level that those guys are at, it's 24/7. I don't see how they ever get a break. You have to constantly recruit. You have to constantly watch over your players at your position. If you're the head coach, you're watching over the whole thing. I could see the burnout factor being, very, very high, and maybe he's in that kind of situation.
I also see it being very addictive.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get in there, the adrenaline rush, and then you almost have to find something to replace that adrenaline rush. Maybe he's a hunter, a fisherman, or whatever, but maybe he'll have to find something else because he's going to sit there and say, well, I'm going to feel this gap. I want that rush.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they want to go back.
He'll probably end up on television again. I think he was on television.
Yes, he was.
In the interim between Auburn and North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of three high school have been filled. Jeff Turner is leaving Broome after 5 seasons to become the head coach at Woodmont High School.
Mm-hmm.
And also Camden High School and North Central filled their vacancies. Brian Rimpf was hired at Camden. He comes from Jack Britt High School, which is in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And Tyrone Drakeford. Remember Tyrone Drakeford?
I've heard that name.
Great player, went to Virginia Tech out of North Central, played in the NFL for several years. He's the new head coach at his alma mater of North Central. And both will also be the athletic director at their respective school. Wofford begins its spring football practice this coming Wednesday. They'll have their 15 scheduled practices, including at least 2 scrimmages, and the practices will be open to the public. South Carolina begins its spring practice on, I want to say the 25th. Am I right about that? Yes, Saturday, February 25th.
Spring break or something like that.
Yeah, so they'll begin their practice then. Have not seen a start date for Clemson, have you?
Have not.
Yeah, not sure exactly when they will start. They're the national champions. They can start anytime they want to.
Maybe they won't practice.
Yeah, they just go out on the field, roll the footballs out there.
You lose that edge. Don't do it.
I was talking to a Rotary Club this morning over in Blythewood. Great group. Don't know why they meet at 7:30 in the morning, but that's okay.
Got to go to work.
Have to see what the other half looks like getting up that early. Had a great time with them. Spent a lot of time, of course, breaking down the football stuff. And, Clemson, you think about it, they lost a ton on offense. Yards, receptions, touchdowns. In the past, they've lost a ton on defense. They've been able to replace them. Offense, though, is a different animal in terms of just replacing them with brand new people, especially at the quarterback spot. A lot easier, I think, to replace great players on defense with other great players than it is on offense. We'll talk about that when we come back.
I've just received a call from Secretary.
Okay, update the basketball. USC women up 14-9 end of a quarter. Furman trailing Chattanooga 11-10, about 7 minutes in. Another big game tonight we should mention is Winthrop, UNC Asheville, two of the top teams in the Big South going at it tonight. You got an eye on that game, Pro?
We got a UNC Asheville leading 13-8. They're about 7 minutes into that game. And also Charleston Southern trailing Radford 11-2. That's in the first half. Presbyterian down 4-2 to High Point very early in that one.
All right, yeah. Winthrop, Asheville, and Liberty tied for the lead in the Big South going into action tonight. All right, going back to what I was saying about Clemson. I mean, it just makes sense because of the nature of offense and the nature of defense. You know, offense, it's timing, it's quarterback working with the receivers, working with the running backs, a unique skill set there on the offensive side. You know, football, I mean, defensive football, it's plug a guy. I'm not saying it's simple. Don't get me wrong. I know there's a lot of technique and everything that goes into defensive football, but in basically it's find the ball, get the ball. You know, find the guy with the ball and go get him. And on defense, the last couple of years, Clemson lost all those really good players, and they had really good players coming in. And even as young players, they could go in with the instruction of Venables and the coaches and pick up what they needed to and basically just go and out-talent the guy across from you and make plays. Now you're talking about it on the offensive side, starting with a quarterback. And whoever it is they go to is going to be somebody who's never taken a significant snap in a game before at Clemson. That's brand new piece number one. And then you're talking about some new receivers having to step up and carry the load, and a new running back having to step up and carry the load. The good thing is 4 starting offensive linemen, guys who were starting at the end of the season, do return. They do have to replace a very good center. So I don't know. I think it's reasonable, I think, to sit here and talking about Clemson in 2017 and say this offense might struggle a little bit early on. They might beg to differ and argue otherwise, and Dabo would never admit it. But it's indeed possible that they will struggle early on, especially when they face an Auburn team in the second week.
Well, you know, the interesting thing about it is normally when we look at football, there's little things that may go by us, and we have to see what's going on. And as far as that's concerned, their defense reloaded and they played well. But guess who ain't there no more? Ben Boulware, the guy who may be limited athletically, but points when people should move and shift. Well, that's a big loss on defense when you got your rudder that's gone. It'll be interesting to see who's out there, you know, kind of changing defensive signals when they need changing if the offense calls an audible. So it'll be interesting to see. So technically they lose 2 quarterbacks, number 4 and their quarterback on defense.
Yeah. I'm just looking at some of the numbers of the departed players, and you look at the rushing game between Gallman and Deshaun Watson, you're talking about 1,700 rushing yards and 26 touchdowns gone. Interceptions, 9 interceptions gone between Jadar Johnson and Cordray Tankersley. Passing, of course, everything leaves with Watson, almost 4,600 yards. Wow, I did not realize what his numbers had reached by the end of the year. 4,600 yards, 41 touchdowns, 67% completion. And everybody wants to talk about the 17 interceptions. Going back to the Heisman vote.
Right.
There weren't that many at that point. But my goodness, how this guy went through the 2 seasons he just went through, and both times fell shy of the Heisman is remarkable.
Yeah, and both guys that won it. I mean, Lamar Jackson was a great player. It's just he was not the best player in the ACC, much less the country. I mean, Deshaun Watson, I think if you had that vote again now, it would be a runaway the opposite direction for Deshaun Watson. For whatever reason, if you just looked at his stats and you looked at interceptions, I guess that's a knock. But if you looked at the way he played in big games, in clutch situations, he just stepped up. And you compare Lamar Jackson, and to me, that's a better indication of what type of player you have. Deshaun Watson is the best player in college football. Lamar Jackson might be the most exciting.
Yeah.
The most dynamic.
A lot of people voted him the Heisman when he leaped over that guy.
Yeah, on a Friday night in Syracuse when there's no other games on and everybody's watching. Yeah.
But I'm going to make a statement here that people think I'm crazy, but I think I'm right with this. If Deshaun Watson wins the Heisman, he doesn't win the national championship. It's something mental about a guy who thinks he's been slighted and his focus becomes laser-like. It was almost, you can tell, Cohen, his body language after that night in New York. He looked like a guy, fine, okay. And when you got a guy that's like that.
He was pissed. He didn't talk to the media after the Heisman. He went with his family. So typically all of them, the finalists do talk with the media afterwards, but he didn't. Not even the local Clemson guys who were up there didn't talk with them. And you're probably right. He probably
that gave him laser
probably
focus.
had that in the chip on his shoulder to go out in those 2 games in the playoffs and just tear up whoever it was that was in front of him. So anyway, just to finish the thought, we talked about what they've lost in the passing game, the running game, the receiving game. My goodness, you lose 98, 76. That's 174 receptions between Williams and Scott. Throw in another 46 from Leggett. That's 230 more or less receptions between those 3. They just now. I will say you got Renfro coming back. You got Kane coming back. You got Ray McLeod coming back, and you're going to see more of Cornell Powell. Travion Thompson will play a bigger role. DeAndre Overton will have a chance to play a bigger role. They say Mylan Richards, pretty good tight end, can catch the ball. He'll probably have the first shot at being the starting tight end. And you got the 2 receivers that they signed in this class who are both pretty highly touted. So just saying it's a lot to replace on offense. And I think when you lose groups of great players in one season, one side or the other, I think it's if you have good talent coming in, it's easier to cover it up on the defensive side and get away with it than it is on the offensive side. Now, great quarterback play can change all of that. Whoever it is that emerges as Clemson's quarterback, whether it's Kelly Bryant, let's give him the benefit of the doubt starting out. I mean, it's going to be his job starting out. They're going to seniority. He's going to get the first opportunity in the spring. Most people think he'll be surpassed by Zarek Cooper or Hunter Johnson, or maybe even Chase Bryce when he gets there. If they get the great quarterback play once again, see, I think Tavian Feaster at running back. I know C.J. Fuller is back, but I don't think C.J. Fuller is Tavian Feaster. Okay. In fact, Feaster in fewer games still had more net yards rushing than Fuller did, 221 to 211. Adam Choice is back as well. I get that. And they got the guy coming in from Louisiana. But anybody who saw Tavian Feaster, especially when he was healthy as a junior at Spartan High, will tell you that he's special.
Well, the key point is I think Tavian Feaster, for me, with whoever wins the quarterback job, potentially he's the Linus Blanket. What I mean by Linus Blanket is you can hand it off to him. However, if you look down the field and you feel uncomfortable, there's your safety valve coming out of the backfield. And let's face it, one of the things that made Deshaun Watson great is, and those 17 interceptions notwithstanding, because he was asked as a senior to take more chances. You got to know when you can throw a ball that doesn't look like it's going to be completed, and then a young quarterback with his deer in the headlights look that won't even try that throw.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big difference.
All right, we'll be right back. Buddy Pugh coming up. Okay, we continue Sports Talk from Columbia. South Carolina Radio Network. USC up on Auburn. Women's basketball, 24-16. 4:06 to go. In the half, Coach has 10 for USC, which is shooting 58% from the floor, holding Auburn to 27%. Furman and Chattanooga, men's play tied at 19. First half up in Greenville. You know what's coming up? You know what is coming up. Doesn't take long to get from football, bowl season, through signing day, and back to football, spring practice. And here on Sports Talk, you know we love to talk football with our coaches around the state, catch up with them this time of year on the recruiting class, as well as the plans for spring ball. So we usually begin everything in this state with Buddy Pugh at South Carolina State. It's our pleasure to have the head Bulldog with us here on Sports Talk. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good, guys. Phil, how are you?
We're good. Always good to have you with us. And before we talk about preparations for 2017 and the team, what'd you think about the recruiting class you signed last week?
I thought it was good. We've got a nice group of in-state guys that are excited about coming to play for us. Most of them are, I think, the skill type of kid, the guys that can run around and jump and catch and do stuff like that. So we're excited about this class.
I mean, your class is almost exclusively in-state guys. In fact, just scrolling through it here, I don't see an out-of-state kid. Was that by design?
It was. We tried to limit some of our, I guess maybe spending some that way, and it gave us a chance to have, a good size class, but still not be quite as expensive. So, we're hoping that we can continue to, maybe make that a way that we can maybe reduce some of our overhead.
Sure. So who in the class really stands out to you? Maybe somebody that we should look for as a freshman who can come in and help you?
Well, I think you always look at a quarterback. The Tyrese Nick kid from over at Strom Thurmond is probably the lead guy. He's a athletic guy. We think we might want to go back in that style of direction with quarterback. So I think he might be the most important guy. We signed an offensive tackle from Keenan High School who, is a guy that we need to get going pretty quickly. So, look, the Tyson Gray kid, a good size, really good looking kid. So we've got some guys, that way from around these parts. The kind of guy that can give us some help.
Do you have any transfers coming down your way from a Division I level?
We haven't at this point, but most of the time when those guys come in, it's generally maybe in the summer or maybe after they get through spring ball and they kind of see that, they might not necessarily fit into the plans of the schools that they are, playing at, that they might want to look for some place they can play. You get them sometimes that way. So hopefully we'll get a guy too, maybe a local guy that we can depend on to come in and give us some immediate help that way.
All right. And again, looking over your list of signees, seeing a lot of guys that played in the Touchstone Energy North-South game and also in the Shrine Bowl. So you've got some guys with some very good credentials.
You do. You think about guys from all over the state. You think about some of the Lakeview kids that we've had a lot of success with. Xavier Johnson, is a big time, we think, defensive end. We thought he was going to be maybe a 6'1", maybe about 190, maybe 200-pound kid. When he got in here, we rated him, he was like 239. So, we've got some chances to have some guys that can develop into the kind of players that you used to seeing coming out of South Carolina State.
All right, so as you start looking ahead to your spring practice, when will you begin?
We'll start the second week in March, somewhere around the 14th, 15th of March, and then our spring game will be that weekend of April 15th.
Okay. And what are your greatest concerns going in? I would imagine you lost your starting quarterback. Is that the number one concern, is defining that position, who will be your guy?
Well, I think it will. You've got to solidify your offensive approach a little bit. We've had, an issue or two the last couple of years seemingly finishing, on the offensive side. So we like to have a good solid spring, a good tough hard-nosed spring, trying to get our offense back to where we want it. We're thinking about maybe changing our philosophy a little bit. So it'll be a fun spring, experimenting and trying to figure out exactly what we can do with the crowd of people that we've got here.
Mm-hmm. Do you have the same offensive coaches, or are you making any changes there?
Well, right now we've got the same staff. We've had pretty good success with these guys. We like to try to keep most of them in place.
Yeah.
You can imagine a G.A. Magnus and some of those kind of guys that are here, are kind of a high gun kind of guys for us. And, they may be here, they may not be. We just try to, kind of let the chips fall, as those guys, kind of find them. So hopefully we can keep everybody in place. But at the same time, we got to be ready to move if we have to.
Sure.
Well, you're talking about maybe going maybe to a quarterback and give you more of a run-pass option. Coach Pugh, is that because you're looking at maybe in those critical times when you need third down conversions, you need a guy who can throw but also pull it down when need be?
You know what, Tom? I think you're exactly right. We've traditionally been a run most kind of oriented style offense. We need a guy that we can replace more easily that way. When you got the running style, the athletic guys, you can generally have 2 or 3 of those guys that you can maybe plug in. Whereas when you got a drop back, throw it around guy, it takes so much time to develop one of those guys that if you mess around and lose one, then seemingly the whole ship kind of falls apart on you a little bit. So, we want to kind of take a little bit of a look at some of the guys in state, who've done some things with the athletic style quarterbacks. The people down south, Charleston Southern, those guys, they seem to have a pretty good idea about some things. The Wofford people, just some of the schools around that have had the kind of success that we like to kind of emulate some at this point. We think we're going to take a look at.
Mm-hmm. Triple option?
Well, we're not exactly sure. Most of the offenses now got some style of option involved.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to try to see if we can figure out what we can do, in a way that would allow us to use the athleticism of our guys.
Yeah. Your defense last year only gave up 23 points per game. I mean, you weren't bad at all on defense.
You know what? And we've got a nice group of defensive guys returning. We got those 2 linebackers, Darius Leonard and Deshaun Taylor, returning. Those guys are really good football players. We think Darius could possibly be one of the next big timers that may have a chance to play, on the next level. I think we've got some young defensive linemen that are really, really, I think outstanding looking kind of guys. The big Crouch kid, Robert Crouch from over at Johnsonville,
Mm-hmm.
Is a humongous guy. I even remember the Paul McKeever kid from over at Batesburg, Leesville. We think he's got a chance to be really special. So we got some pretty good looking guys, over there on the defensive side that seem to be the kind of guys that you used to see, come out of here and play on Sundays.
Yeah. I hate to ask you this question. I don't mean to be starting up anything, but in the case of Darius, is he in his graduate? Where is he academically?
Don't even mention that. Deal.
Well,
you know what? We've been kind of on our P's and Q's on that deal, and there's still a little rumbling.
Yeah.
You might have, but I'd fight a guy. If he comes in here and tries to mess with my player here right at the very end that way.
Well, now, but I have to. Is it possible he could go to a bigger school to play his last year?
Well, anything's possible, but he likes it here.
Okay.
At South Carolina State, we treat him pretty good, so hopefully we can kind of bring him onto the house for one more shot.
Well, I mean, I listen. I'm on your side. I think it's terrible. Well,
no, you're not on my side. You just brought it up.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that you just told everybody you're on my side.
Well, friends like these.
I just wanted to see what you. Now we got to pay attention to it too. So, well,
no, you need to just stay out of my sight for the next couple of months.
That's a good idea. I think I will. Well, listen, you have a great spring practice, and I expect Darius Leonard to be in your uniform come this September.
Well, let's sure hope so. You guys, listen, y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, Coach. We appreciate it. Okay. Buddy Pugh, back in a moment. All right, thanks again to Buddy Pugh for being with us here tonight on Sports Talk. Good hearing from him. We'll continue to catch up with the coaches around the state over the next several weeks as we go through spring football practice. Once again, didn't get a chance to ask him. I don't think I have it in front of me. Maybe you know, Pro, about state schedule for this coming year. Certainly it can't be as daunting as last year's schedule. Didn't they open with 3 straight? Yeah, they had 3 straight FBS games. They opened, I know they had Clemson in week 2, and they had Louisiana Tech.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, it was somebody else.
I can't recall.
And it's just not fair. It's just
take one for the team for the paycheck.
Yeah, I know that, but I mean, you know, you're 0-3, and not only are you 0-3,
you're beat up.
You're beat up. You're blown out in every game. You know, the Clemson game, that was embarrassing for everybody in that they shortened the quarters and ran the clock in the second half because it was so one-sided.
Just don't toss.
Those games, I'm telling you, I've been saying them for years, those games should not be played. I mean, you're ripping off the fan. I know there's a better way to help. You want to help these schools, then take some of your $1 billion and set up a fund and give it to them. But don't throw the Lions, the Christians to the Lions there in these games that are no contest. And every so often you're going to have, you know, the upset. I know it can happen every so often, but you know as well as I do, 9 out of 10 times it's a blowout. It's a game that's over by halftime, and people are leaving. They're not even watching the games, you know.
But, you know, you don't want to take charity, so you go in there and you play.
It's not charity.
Guys get a chance to play in a big stadium.
The Citadel will remember that game for a long time.
Well, their fans have.
Appalachian State.
I'll give you that. It happens. But Coach Joe Moglia, after having 70 put on him in Columbia, said, "I'll never play another game."
I mean, I get
like
it.
That.
You don't have to do it. No one puts a gun to your head, and I'm not a fan of them either because I'd rather watch
the in-state schools pay these schools peanuts. That's $200,000.
Well, that's a lot for a small school.
You send me
$200,000. I'll be happy to take it.
Of course, a millionaire would tell you.
Didn't you win that today at the carnival?
I did. I had a lot at the.
Of course, a millionaire would tell you, "I'm not bringing my team back in there."
Well, they don't need it. You know, I get that, but I just think it's a ripoff. The fan buying the ticket, part of the season ticket package or whatever to go watch that. Who wants to go sit through and watch that? You know, I mean, you want to see a competitive game. At least I do. You know. So anyway, let's go to Kevin in Sumter. Take a quick phone call here on Sports Talk. Chattanooga's up 33-31 on Furman. Seconds are running out in the first half. USC women at the break, leading 29-16 over Auburn. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Phil. Nobody does an update like you. I tell you that.
Man, we try to stay on top of it.
This is Kevin Ireland over in Sumter.
Of course it is, the voice of the Gamecocks.
How's it going?
That's great.
Just get your thoughts on something.
Yes.
Do you think this is the absolute best year ever for sports finals? Starting with Villanova to Coastal Carolina to Cleveland Cavaliers to the Cubs.
Yeah. 2-3-1 series.
You'd be hard pressed. You'd be hard pressed to find a better year.
What's number 2 even? I mean, that's definitely number 1. The question is, what is number 2 behind this year?
I know. I can't even think of a year for sports finals. You know, 2 teams coming back from 3-1 deficits. You know, Clemson winning in the last second.
Last
Super
play.
Bowl going to overtime. Yeah, last play.
Last
they were
play.
down 10 in the
You can
fourth
leave
quarter.
that Super Bowl out.
Last play. You had last play in the basketball game, men's basketball championship.
Yep.
Last play.
Mhm.
Last play in the football championship. Coastal came down to the last play because they had to make a great defensive play there at the end.
And I think even obscure, I guess MLS soccer got exciting at the
Who's this?
final.
Who's
MLS
He
soccer.
lost corn.
He lost corn.
Come
that one.
on, Kev. You know better than go there.
I got to throw them out a little bit.
Yeah, I thought the
you get
WNBA finals went 7
You thought
games
you'd
too,
get a
with
kick
the
out
Sparks
of
and
it.
the Lynx.
Says it's soccer. You thought you had a kick out of it.
Let's think. How about in golf? Did anything? We had some exciting finishes in golf, didn't we?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been
Dustin Johnson won a major.
It's been a great year from that standpoint. NASCAR went down to the last race. Of course, it's going to do that every year. Did it go to the last lap? I don't think it went to the last lap, but it was pretty close.
No, but I'm just saying for sports finals, I don't think you could. You always want a game 7, and you get,
Yeah, well,
overtime in the Super Bowl.
I'm with you.
Right?
Great point. It's been a great year for that kind of stuff. Did you return your inquiry for the Heritage Media Golf event on the 27th?
I did not yet. I don't know whether Angela. Sometimes her emails get me. I'll have to give her a call tomorrow.
They came out yesterday, I think. So,
okay.
Make sure you get it in.
I'm working on the magazine right now, so I'll jump on the computer. So, just wanted to say, hey, I was taking some dinner back to the troops so we can finish up. And just wanted to say I was listening to you and just popped in my head. I was thinking, God, man, that's crazy. The Coastal goes to game 3, 4-3 game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great year. Been a great year for. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate you.
All right, Phil.
Bringing that to our attention. Yeah, it's. Don't know that we'll have a year like this again anytime soon, but who knows?
It was interesting. Yeah,
it all kind of came together this year from a excitement standpoint in these ultimate moments of series and
especially
championship
college
runs.
Football championship. First of all, the odds of those two teams coming back, even as good as they were, is kind of against that. And then to play a game almost eerily similar to the one they played. It's just that Clemson did not have the gaffe on special teams. Once they cleaned that up, they had a chance.
Yeah,
that was
they still gave up a few gash plays.
Yes.
Howard had a big catch against him. Quarterback had the touchdown run right through their defense. But you're right, they did a better job on special teams. It was just Clemson's time. What can you say? It was just their time to get it done. They handled that last drive extremely well. Well called final drive. Some big time catches to keep the drive alive. I mean, don't forget Leggett's big catch. They got the call on the interference. It got them down there close. They handled you give the coaching staff credit. They handled their timeouts and the clock well. They didn't panic. They didn't mess it up, And
I want to give the coaching staff credit, even if I'm making this up, which I'm not, because I read it somewhere, where you would think Clemson did all the homework they could. And there was a writer who said, they don't call the pick play in the Big 12.
Where were the officials
What are the officials from in the national championship game?
The Big 12.
The Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
And then I figured it out. No wonder they get a lot of yards in the Big 12. And sure enough, they called it, hey, Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
Dabo may have been on the headset. Big 12 officials.
And you know what's funny is a couple of years ago at Notre Dame,
it got called.
Florida State was going to beat Notre Dame. Or was the other way around? Notre Dame was going to beat Florida State, and they called the pick play on Notre Dame.
Boom.
Yeah. On what's his name's son? The Admiral's son. He was the receiver.
Oh, David Robinson.
Yeah, he was the receiver. So, but was it really a clean pick play? I thought that
yes,
the receiver kind of went down to the ground and just sort of got in his way. Did he even make contact with the defensive
beautiful
back?
It was textbook.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was textbook.
I just love the background story on that, how on the headset to Dabo, Jeff Scott insisted that they run this play.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently Dabo wanted to do something else, and he just insisted he would not relent Run this play, run this play.
Dabo called the play.
No, Jeff Scott called the play. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Dabo had something else in his mind, and Jeff Scott called the play, and I think maybe at first it was met with some resistance. He kept pushing it, and, the rest is history. Yeah.
And the big game in the Big South we were looking at, Winthrop leading UNC Asheville at the half, 35-34.
Oh, good ball game. Good ball game there. Good ball game up in Greenville, and USC women up by 13. That will do it. Have a great night. Thank you, Pro, K-Mac, and the Low Jar Mart. We shall see tomorrow night here on Sports Talk.